You're watching Force 13's live streaming service.
Welcome to Force 13 Live. This is the Parthenon here in Athens, and I'm on my first location in the Force 13 tour. My name is Nathan Foy, and I'm here opening up tonight's stream, or today's stream, to talk about several tropical developments. And behind me, we've had a massive storm here in the last half hour or so. We've gotten absolutely drenched. And that is partly to do with a potential system that may be forming in the Mediterranean Sea, which is something else that you might be talking about during this hour. But the main part of today's show, as the rain gets back up again, is talking about two rapidly intensifying storms. Lee, which last I saw was a tropical storm getting towards hurricane status. I'm sure the team will correct me if I'm wrong on that now. And a recently designated hurricane, Jova, in the eastern Pacific off the coast of Mexico. Lee is expected to rapidly intensify and become a very strong, probably category 4 in the Atlantic, and could be a threat to the lesser and greater Antilles, possibly sideswiping them, and then possibly later on towards the US East Coast. It's something that we're monitoring very closely, and we felt the need to do a live update this hour to talk about all of that. And I'm joined by probably the team that's going to take it from here, because the conditions here are dreadful. I was hoping to do a lot more today, but we have, of course, Ethan, who is effectively hosting today's stream. We have Patrick, Dimitri, Farhan, Orlando, and Soham, and possibly others that I can't see on my screen. So I'll throw it to Ethan, and I'll chip in if I can.
I just was unmuted on the stream. That's fantastic. But the main feature we are covering tonight is Tropical Storm Lee. ATCF system is going right now with winds of 70 miles per hour, so it is bearing down on hurricane intensity at this time. National Hurricane Center advisory is forthcoming at top of the Atlantic, but we've also got in the eastern Pacific, sunrise has just arisen over a very powerful hurricane over here, now with winds estimated by the ATCF system of 105 miles per hour. This is Hurricane Jova, and is rapidly getting strength right now, and it is probably rapidly approaching major hurricane strength. And if I had a personal opinion on this one, it probably will be a major hurricane, probably in very short order. And
Can I interrupt?
There's the infrared.
Look at these conditions.
We're struggling a little bit with
I'm
your
sure my
connection,
signal's
Nathan.
quite spotty.
We're struggling a little bit with your connection, Nathan. If you do have any comments or questions, you can send those down into the comment section down below, and we'll answer those in due course. We did have another question come in. Will Tropical Storm Lee hit any landmasses as a major hurricane? It's not looking likely, to be honest, but I will say that impacts regarding Lee are more likely to be tropical storm force winds on the northern end of the Leeward Islands, and maybe even down towards Puerto Rico. It's really just a question of how far south Lee goes. And that is a bit of an uncertainty whenever it comes to this storm's track, and how far south this storm goes will determine what impact the Leeward Islands will get.
Half an hour. We're
struggling more with your connection, Nathan.
Look at these conditions. I'm sorry for interrupting. I know. These conditions, they're absolutely.
So what Nathan is trying to say, I believe, is the
We've got
conditions.
severe storm conditions. I know it's not necessarily formulated, but this is the view right now at the park.
What I believe Nathan is trying to say is that those are conditions right now in Athens in Greece, which I believe are part of a potential metacane that might be going on in that area. I know that there is potential for a metacane of sorts to be developing in the region. I believe our team, whatever is behind that, is giving a 50% chance of development of a metacane in these regions right now, I think. It might be around those
Look at
numbers.
this flowing rain. Absolutely dreadful conditions.
And the rain looks like that it's coming down in buckets in there. So that's a look live in Greece on location from Nathan. Let's go back to Tropical Storm Lee here. If you do have any comments or questions, send those down to the comment section down below. How about Invest 96L? Will that become a tropical storm or hurricane? Thoughts from the team on that?
I mean, 96L is the one that's coming off the, what you call it? The Cabo Verde Islands right now, correct?
Yes, that is the outlined area that the National Hurricane Center is giving a 60% chance of development. It has dropped down a little bit from 70%. It was 70% yesterday, but model support has decreased just a little, albeit 70 to 60. It's only 10%, so chances still could go back up, but there is still a significant chance, greater than 50% actually, albeit barely, of a potential tropical cyclone developing. And if this system does go on to develop, it does look like that it will stay out to sea and that it will recurve pretty early on. So that's some good news. So land effects regarding 96L probably going to be the Cape Verde Islands, but not much beyond that. Maybe up towards the Azores. We'll have to wait and see what 96L does, though.
Yeah, I'd agree. It honestly probably has the best chances of gaining strength over the subtropics versus where it is right now, mainly due to dry air and shear in the area.
Thoughts about some models hinting at Category 5 status for Lee? Do you think that it's possible or not at all?
Well, in this I'll answer this one. In this field, there's no specific absolute term as it will not happen or it will happen. What I can say is there's a good chance it could, but you also have to take into account that IO replacement cycles are often not that well forecast. Though I've noticed the HAFS model, the hurricane model, has did have an IO replacement cycle at the end of its period after it peaked at an absurdly low high intensity.
We've got the National Hurricane Center's forecast cone up on the screen right now, and you can see that it has it being a major hurricane for a fairly long time, and probably sometime beyond this forecast cone's limits go. So this will probably be a big ace producer, but a lot of question marks regarding Lee right now. The biggest question mark is what will it do after day 5? There's a lot of questions that could be answered with this regarding day 5. A track maybe curving out to sea is possible, a track into Nova Scotia is possible, and a track maybe into the east coast of the U.S. is possible. We can't rule out really anything past day 5. We can't even rule out a track towards maybe even Florida. There's a lot of question marks that have yet to be answered, and I would say regarding anything past day 5 for Lee, if you're from Florida all the way up to Atlantic Canada, watch Lee closely for potential impacts, and anything right now past day 5 is a very uncertain situation, and there is still question marks to be answered regarding this storm. We'll have a better idea about where Lee's going to go coming this weekend, maybe even to early next week. So that would be maybe a slightly better time where we'll have better answers for where Lee might go in terms of impacts in the eastern U.S. and Bermuda and Canada.
The main reason for this uncertainty is that there's an upper level trough that's digging into the Florida region that's being shown by the models, but the chatter from meteorologists around social media is that this upper level trough that is over Florida is not that well founded. So this is inducing a lot of uncertainty in the track.
Absolutely. And so, do you know if we're scheduled to get any recon flights into Lee or Jova? I don't think Jova's going to get any, which is truly unfortunate.
Jova is unfortunately not getting any, but I do recall seeing the plan the day it did say that there was recon scheduled to leave. Give me a second, I'll just pull up the exact time.
Okay.
Recon
So
is scheduled for Lee tomorrow. Like we said, Soam said, we don't know the specific time or we don't recall. However, Recon will be going into Tropical Storm, perhaps even Hurricane Lee if it does continue with its current organizational trends right now. Recon will be going in tomorrow. Um, that's pretty much what we are seeing right now.
no recon scheduled
Yes.
for today either. Not even today.
Latest plan the day says they will be beginning 6 hourly fixes on Lee on the 7th July 2330Z, 11:30 p.m. GMT.
Okay, so that's
On
tomorrow
7th,
afternoon.
tomorrow afternoon American in EDT time, I guess.
Yeah.
Then there's another Doppler radar mission into Lee for 8th September at around 12 p.m. UTC. And yes, and as I can confirm, there's no plan for reconnaissance in the Eastern Pacific.
That's unfortunate. Switching gears here a little bit. Here is a tropical storm by the name of Yun Yung. I think that's how you pronounce it. In the Western Pacific, which is Tokyo bound. Located just south of Japan right now. Estimated winds per the Joint Typhoon Warning Center and our estimates right now sit at 45 miles per hour. There is, of course, as you can clearly see, some northerly shear on the storm, very heavy northerly shear, which is displacing convection towards the south. Of course, there is a little bit of question marks regarding how strong this storm will get prior to its landfall in Japan, and the latest Joint Typhoon Warning Center's forecast cone does depict a peak. Looks like that's tomorrow, actually. This is actually their latest forecast cone, actually. Just came out. Of 60 miles per hour in about 24 hours, and making a very close pass on the 8th, midday UTC on the 8th, very close to Tokyo. Maybe even swiping the coastline of Japan. We'll have to wait and see on that. But of course, beyond that in the Western Pacific, there's not really much. I mean, you have 98W, but that's not going to develop. So, Western Pacific looks to finally be sleeping, Soham.
It has to be mentioned that
Unfortunately, I wouldn't
according
say that because what happens is I'll go into a little bit of climatological speak now. But what happens is rising air motion is currently forecast to move into the Western Pacific around the international date line in the second half of September on models. Both GFS and CMW show this. So I can tell you that there will definitely be some significant activity resuming, at least from the end of second week, beginning of third week of September. So even if it is sleeping, we'll still probably get some short weak storms in between, like Yonyong.
Absolutely. So here is a live satellite look, as I just pull it up here. Where's it gone? There it is. So here is a live satellite look on the infrared picture of, I would personally say, explosively intensifying Hurricane Jova in the Eastern Pacific. Right now, it has winds estimated of 105 miles per hour, but looking at the satellite imagery, Soham, it could be approaching 110.
Yeah. Well, if you, I believe I've posted the latest micro imagery for Hova somewhere. If we can pull that up.
I'll try to pull that up on my screen here. It's gonna take me just a little bit to actually find the latest pass.
That's not a problem. I'll find it.
I do have the latest pass for Hova up.
We've got it up on screen right now, and that looks to be a pinhole eye core in development, Soham.
Pretty much in conjunction with the spiraling convective bursts on the infrared imagery. If I were to tell you, if it were up to me, I'd probably say that I don't think anybody is anticipating just how strong Hova can actually get.
No, but if I had to make a forecast cone and estimate a peak intensity for Hova at the moment, I'd probably go with around 150 miles an hour for peak. Of course, National Hurricane Center is due to update their numbers at top of the hour. They've got 140 miles per hour in peak. I think they have it at what, 2 days out?
Yeah, 2 days out. According to, let me quickly overlay something important. Wait a second. Yeah, so I'm posting an image. This is an overlay of the NHC forecast cone with the sea surface temperatures. Look out for live discussion chat. I'm posting it there. Show it on the stream. It's a very useful graph. Here, take a look.
Nathan, you were going to say something.
Yeah, just look at these conditions right now. We're absolutely wild here. Absolutely wild.
I posted the graph.
Wow. That is some pouring rain down there in Athens in Greece from the potential metacane in the area. If you had to estimate how many rainfall per hour that is in maybe millimeters or inches, pick your poison in which measurement you use.
This is
What would you
probably
think?
in excess of 50 millimeters per hour.
In excess of 50 millimeters an hour. That's how many inches is
Good
that?
estimate. 2 inches per hour at the minute with very regular lightning flashes. We've got standing water flowing rapidly down hills, which can cause serious injury. We've got very, very bad conditions right now and extremely dangerous.
And I believe that that is due to Storm Daniel in the area, I believe is what it's called. So that is
to go through with that potential Medicaine. I am fully wet through inside and out. I think we're getting on this bus or any vehicle that comes up. Really, no, that's going by. So it's been a horror show this afternoon, and I'm going to head out now and do some filming of my own on this. So I wish you all well. I know you couldn't hear me for most of it, but that's the view from Athens right now.
right. Stay safe, Nathan, and hope everything is going well over there. Going back to what Soham has shared with us here, you've shared us a National Hurricane Center cone that's overlaid with the sea surface temperatures, and you can see that even though that Jova has maybe about 36 hours over prime sea surface temperatures of what it's over right now, the sea surface temperatures do remain favorable through maybe even 48 hours up to 60 hours for some potential more intensification. So certainly conditions are far from over, or far from taking a significant downtrend for Jova. Still a lot of time for this storm to intensify, and could even approach Category 5 status.
I do want to point out that the latest 12Z ships guidance is out for Hova, and remarkably, I will say this, and this is kind of remarkable here in terms of percentages. Latest ships guidance has an 86% chance of a 45 knot increase in 36 hours.
What?
And this initialized as of 90. This initialized as 90 knots. So this pretty much gives an 86% chance of or greater of seeing a Category 4 150 mile per hour storm. That'd be 130 knots in 24 hours, which is just remarkable. I will
What
send
was
this
the
in
wind
live
speed
discussion.
chance?
45 knot increase in 36 hours has an 86.2% chance as of 12C ships guidance, and the guidance is in live
That's
discussion right now.
that is an 86% chance of a 155-mile-an-hour storm.
This initialized at 90 knots for
And
12Z,
it's
so
probably
that'd be
stronger than that
150.
by now.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
Cat 5 chances right now on this storm are significantly rising right now. So this is I mean, if this storm say hypothetically that this storm does get to Category 5 status, excuse me,
I
a second.
will. I want to point out here that that the quickly before you go over the Ethan, you could see on my screen right now this extremely powerful storm right now. Classic signature with some with microwave imagery confirming that pinhole eye, as well as some pretty violent convective bursts wrapping around that pinhole eye. Basically, a signal of explosive intensification right now, and I definitely do think that if this does keep up with its current trend, and given the fact that it is over some pretty favorable sea surface temperatures, as well as an upper level anticyclone currently over Hova right now, which could promote some pretty favorable outflow conditions as well. This could definitely make a run as an extremely powerful Category 4, perhaps even up to Category 5. I definitely think the chances are increasing on this storm given its latest organizational trends, and Same could definitely be said for Lee in the future. We'll have to see what Lee does, but Hova right now is looking quite gnarly in terms of infrared and satellite presentation. I think you would definitely agree on that, Ethan.
I would, and let's just say hypothetically that Hova does end up getting towards Category 5 status at the same time as Lee does. Um, if it's going to happen, it is an incredibly small window for it to happen. I would say that the chances of that actually happening are quite low, but let's just say hypothetically it does happen. Never in history have we had a Category 5 hurricane in both the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific at the exact same time. Never has it happened. It's always been the
We
Western Pacific or the Eastern Pacific or the Western Pacific and the Atlantic. It has never been the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic. Never has that happened
we
in
did
history.
we did get very close in 2018. I think Walaka and Michael, they were I think they were just a week apart when they reached their peak.
No, no, no,
Yeah,
no, no.
The
no.
no.
By the time Michael was intensifying up towards its peak in Florida, Walaka was long gone.
Ethan, you can also point out here, I'm taking a look at some model guidance here. You can see that upper level anticyclone, I'll pull it up real fast on my stream, but the upper level
For Hova?
anticyclone, which is currently, yes, for Hova, you could see, once I go to this here real fast, I'll take a look at the, GFS model, 200 millibar wind. As you can see right here, upper level anticyclone currently positioned right over Hova, as you can see by this pretty large hump. That is the upper level anticyclone currently over Hova right now. And as you can see, this is basically just what GFS initialized it as. You can see right here a lot of outflow channels being promoted by this upper level anticyclone currently positioned right now over Hova, based off of the latest model guidance. So this thing has not only very favorable sea surface temperatures to work with, however, given the fact that its outflow is continuing to expand due to this particular anticyclone over Hova right now, is promoting the opening of several outflow channels, which is not we're not only going to continue to boost up the storm in terms of intensity, but we'll keep it in a very healthy structure as this continues to explosively intensify. You can see at this upper level anticyclone is pretty much going to persist over the storm for quite a while before flattening out over the next 48 to 72 hours. And then as it does move into weaker sea surface temperatures, more colder waters, it's pretty much going to collapse. You're going to have
I
some you're going to have also an area of easterly ridging basically build up just off the Baja California Peninsula, which is also going to probably cause some issues for Hova as it does move off further to the west northwest into cooler sea surface temperatures.
It's also worth noting that the GFS actually has Hova at 10 millibars too weak at this point. If you have noticed the initialization,
Yes.
It's been really interesting to note with Hova because you have models like the HWRF, HAFS, HMON, and the like of
oh yeah,
those, and
I've been meaning to talk
they've
about this actually.
just a minute, Soham. But you know those models, those computer models are known for going extremely high sometimes in terms of intensity, especially on intense storms like this. And yet here we are with a explosively intensifying Eastern Pacific hurricane, with ship's guidance indicating that it could get close to Category 5 status, and all of those model runs don't even have this getting past a mid-Category 1. A mid-Category 1.
Do you want to know why?
I'd be very interested to hear it personally. I hope we should be back on the air now. I think we are. Right, I think we're back on now, so I apologize for that. So I've actually gone and used a hotspot on my phone because of all times for our internet people thing to do maintenance, they decided to do it now for some reason. So, but the show must go on, of course. I do massively apologize for that. It is completely outside of my control. but of course, we were saying something about Hurricane Lee or Tropical Storm Lee. We are still waiting on the National Hurricane Center's advisory to come out at top of the hour. We're only
I
about
think
20 minutes away from that.
yeah, we were talking about why the hurricane models were doing so bad on Jova.
Right, go ahead with that.
Yeah, so basically, I was talking about was the initialization, meaning the very start of the model run on Jova has not been good from both HIFS A and B. They both show the storm being displaced and completely sheared off right from the outset. And because of that, they consistently keep shear way too high, and so the storm barely fails to intensify into a mid-range Cat 1. This is the main reason why the hurricane models have not been doing so well. Because you can obviously see they have not been able to model the upper level anticyclone over the storm properly, if I were to take a guess.
Well, that's a fairly good reason why. And I just want to go back to Lee here, and I have a product here in my software. So basically, this is the forecasted models for the track of Lee, and of course you've got one going into Puerto Rico. Discard that, but you can see here a vast majority of the bulk of the models have Lee going north of the islands, and a fairly good track spread when it comes to the next 2 days regarding track. But once you get towards the end of the forecast period, you'll notice that the range of possible tracks does significantly widen. But beyond that, there is still a little bit of a question mark. Where does it go past day 5? Does it sort of swing around kind of gradually and go into the Carolinas? That's a possibility. Or does it take a more sharper track and go out to sea and makes a close call to Bermuda? That is also a possibility. Does it go up into I forgot what Nova Scotia and maybe even go up towards New England here in the U.S.? That is a possibility. We'll have to wait and see on that. Anything beyond day 5 right now is extremely low uncertainty.
Yes, agreed. And yes, agreed.
Mic off.
And I'm looking at the multi-model diagnostic comparisons for Lee. GFS once this is thinking about this storm reaching major hurricane status by September 11th at 0Z. HWRF has this thing briefly hit category 4 before potentially losing that status and then remaining a major hurricane. HMAR is thinking category 4 all the way for this storm. When it comes to the shear, it's around 5 to 15 knots consistently from all 3 models. SSTs are around 29 degrees Celsius, and the mid-level relative humidity is around 60%. The HMON is thinking it will drop a little bit to around 40%, while GFS wants to hold it around 60. HWRF is a bit in between in this, and I'm going to call that, say, 50% in regards to the mid-level relative humidity there by September 11th at 0Z. Tracks are still consistently moving northwest at this time, but again, as Ethan mentioned, we don't know what's going to happen past day 5.
Yeah, there is still a lot of question marks, as I said. Farhan, you've got the JMA cone up on Yunyang? I think that's how you pronounce its name.
Yes, yeah, this was what I wanted to mention earlier. Uh, the GWC have Yunyang just offshore of Honshu, but according to GMA, it's actually gonna go right landfall right over Tokyo. Now, mind you, at the time that it will be doing that, it's only a weak tropical storm, possibly even only a tropical depression, but still, a tropical cyclone over Tokyo is still going to be headline worthy for news outlets. And it's certainly going to bring a bit of wind and a lot of rain. But yeah, when we compare it to Jova and Lee, it's not really much. But here it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And how strong do you think Yun is going to get prior to Japan? I know that the Joint Typhoon Warning Center is forecasting 60 miles an hour. Do you think it's going to get up to that? Personally, I don't. I actually think it might be a little bit weaker than that.
Well, the GMA also forecast a peak of 45 knots, and which is 10-minute winds, which if we convert to 1 minute wind is probably also 60 miles an hour. But in terms of my actual opinion, yeah, I will agree that it's probably not gonna get there considering the condition. I honestly think that it's probably gonna be lucky even get to Japan still as a tropical cyclone as is forecast right now, considering the shear.
One thing I should point out, if you notice the model guidance, the reason why the JTWC is going as high as it is for Yongyong is because the storm is expected to undergo a trough interaction within 24 hours,
I
where so its forward
see.
outflow would improve. So that could somewhat offset the current shear it is experiencing and cause it to intensify. JTWC is banking on that, and that's why they have raised the forecast to 50 knots in 24 hours.
We'll see about that then.
We'll have to wait and see. So, a bit of a question here for you. I know that I probably could be of use to this question as well. Any analogs for Hova? I know that maybe Marie of 2014 is a potential analog for Hova.
I did jokingly pull up Elida of 2002 as an analog, but as far as I know, if you had to keep it reasonable, like expect like a high end Cat 4, I think I pointed out Kenneth 1993.
You have some breaking news here. NHC advisory is out on Hova. Hova continues to rapidly intensify in the Eastern Pacific Basin and is now a powerful Category 2 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale, with maximum sustained winds of 105 miles per hour, 165 kilometers per hour, and a pressure of 972 millibars, and is expected to have a 125 knot peak in 36 hours.
So that's the latest from the National
The
Hurricane Center.
official
Winds of 105 miles per hour, 145 mile an hour peak. I'm shocked that they didn't go higher in both the initial and peak, personally.
Well, the discussion will explain this, at least from the NHC's perspective. Hova continues to rapidly intensify this morning. Infrared satellite imagery shows deep convection with very close cloud tops over the central core of the system. MIS microwave pass at 11:29 Zulu revealed a well-defined core with a closed mid-level eye and a low-level eye vertically aligned with a mid-level center. High-resolution 1 minute GOES visual imagery is also showing signs of an eye. A blend of the Dvorak subjective and objective satellite intensity estimates from TAFB and UWCA-MMS are between 85 to 90 knots. Given the structure depicted on microwave imagery, will lean towards the higher end of these estimates, with the initial intensity for the survivors set to 90 knots. Environmental conditions continue to be conducive for rapid intensification, with low vertical wind shear and warm sea surface temperatures along the forecast track. Statistical models continue to show extremely high probabilities of further rapid intensification. DTOPS and SHIPS guidance are both extremely high and well above the chronological mean during the next 12 to 24 hours. The peak intensity has been raised to 125 knots in about 36 hours. Given the conductive environment, the NHC intensity forecast continues to favor the stronger model guidance with continued rapid intensification, and the intensity forecast lies above the consensus 8 and regional hurricane models. In about 3 days, Hova is forecast to cross over much cooler SSTs and encounter some drier mid-level air, which should induce weakening. Hova is moving west-northwestward at 11 knots. The track forecast is fairly straightforward. Hova is moving along the southern periphery of a mid-level ridge sent over northern Mexico. The hurricane is expected to continue moving west-northwestward as it rounds the southwestern edge of the high through the forecast period. The latest NHC track forecast is very similar to the previous advisory, except for a slightly faster forward speed. The updated forecast track lies near the corrected consensus aid.
Absolutely, that was the latest National Hurricane Center discussion on Hurricane Jova. And the advisory is out on Lee. They have gone with winds of 70 miles per hour, a pressure of 994 millibars. National Hurricane Center have kept the peak at 150 miles an hour through days 3 through days 5, and they have not upgraded the peak intensity. So once again, 70 miles an hour, 994 millibars, advisory on Lee with a still 150 mile an hour peak. That's the latest from the National Hurricane Center on both of these tropical cyclones. Thoughts from the team?
Actually to indicate there, I am updating the NHC right now, and the advisory is not out on Tropical Storm Lee as of this time.
It is.
However, I believe ATCF and BT have fixed. Oh, there we go. It is now out on my end. Lee close to hurricane strength, likely to rapidly intensify into an extremely dangerous major hurricane by Saturday. Yep, 70 miles per hour, 994 millibars.
What?
And the Sorry, you first?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that Jova has intensified by 30 knots in 12 hours.
Holy cow.
50 knots in 12 hours.
30,
30.
30.
30.
Oh, 30. Okay.
And if that trend,
Okay,
and if that
so
trend
the-
continues, it should be. Well, what would that bring it up to? Trying to get 120
let's
knots
see,
in
nine-
another 12 hours?
120 in 12 hours.
I think it can do a little bit more than that, personally.
We'll see.
Absolutely, but the
Okay,
updates are
the,
out
for-
on both of these systems. We are just waiting on the forecast cones at this point. There is a look at
Forecast
Lee.
cone is out. Forecast cone is out for Jova.
Right, I'll pull that up on my screen here just a second. And there is the latest National Hurricane Center's forecast cone on Jova. As expected, not really much of a change from the previous forecast cone, albeit the intensity guidance, or the intensity has been updated a little bit in the short term to account for the rapid intensification that is currently ongoing for Jova. Once again, 145 mile an hour peak in 36 hours out.
Ethan, can I
Yeah,
go
I
over the
do wanna-
forecast discussion for Tropical Storm Lee?
Make it brief if you can.
Okay, Lee continues to strengthen at a quick pace. Satellite images show that Lee convection has been increasing in intensity and coverage in a central dust overcast feature and a sprawling curved band over the western semicircle.
This is the old
The
advisory.
classification from CFB and SAB are now 3.5/55 knots, and accordingly, the initial intensity has been increased to 55 knots. Lee is not far from hurricane strength and likely to achieve that status later today. The tropical storm is moving west-northwestward at 14 knots on the south side of a subtropical ridge over the central Atlantic. This ridge is expected to persist to the north of Lee during the next several days, keeping the storm in a west-northwest is tracked through the remainder of the week and over the weekend. Although the National Hurricane Center forecast and modeling guidance continues to show Lee's passing to the north of the northern Leeward Islands this weekend, users are reminded that the details of the track forecast are still uncertain at those time ranges. For reference, the average NHC forecast track errors around 125 and 175 nautical miles in days 4 and 5, respectively. The NHC
I do wanna
track forecast.
I do want to make a note that is the
Go on.
old NHC. That is the old NHC discussion. I do want to point out that the 11 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time discussion
yes,
is out, and I will quickly point this out here that recent geostationary microwave satellite imagery shows that the convective structure of Lee continues to improve. Visible imagery shows a well-defined curved band of convection that wraps around the eastern portion of the circulation, and a couple of earlier microwave images revealed a ragged mid-level eye that was open to the north. The low-level structure noted in the 1156 UTC GMI microwave overpass was quite organized with a well-defined well-defined low-level eye feature, and as such, the latest subjective Dvorak T numbers from SAB and TFAB were T3.5, 55 knots. However, given the continued increase in the structure, the initial intensity has been raised to 60 knots, and Lee is continuing to move west-northwestern at 12 knots. And they do state that the shear is going to relax in 24 hours, and given the well-organized level structure of the cyclone, steady to rapid strengthening appears likely, and NHC intensity is similar to the previous advisory at 150 miles per hour at the end of the forecast cone, and there are some uncertainties regarding future strengthening given potentially eyewall replacement cycles that are hard to predict.
Yeah, but look at the key messages. It says, one, Lee is forecast to become a major hurricane by early Saturday and could bring impacts to the northern Leeward Islands this weekend. While it is too soon to determine the location and magnitude of these possible impacts, interest in this area should monitor the progress of Lee and further updates to the forecast. And number two, swells generated by Lee are expected to reach portions of the Lesser Antilles by Friday. These swells are likely to cause life-threatening surf and wind current conditions. So I think if you are in the northern islands of the Lesser Antilles, now is the time to consider preparing for Lee, because this storm might just clip the northern Lesser Antilles.
Absolutely. We've got the previous advisory's key message graphic on my screen right now. It hasn't updated, but I imagine it would be pretty similar to this. We do have a few comments or questions that have come in here. Could Lee hit Staten Island or Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico is a possibility, albeit the chance of it going that far south is not entirely high. Most likely Puerto Rico, if you're going to get anything from Lee, it's probably going to be heavy rainfall and maybe some tropical storm force winds. And for Staten Island, anything past day 5 is incredibly uncertain, and I would recommend just keep watching Lee for a potential impact. We'll have a better idea of where Lee's going to go come next weekend, I should say. Will Lee become a hurricane in less than 12 hours? I imagine it probably will be. If you have any comments or questions, we only have just a few minutes here. Rapid fire questions down in the comment section down below. Be sure to tag us at Force13. It'll light up nice and bright and orange for me.
To
Ethan,
summarize ahead of time, it's so early in Lee's life right now that we have absolutely no idea where it will go. Not even the models know. The NHC doesn't know. Nobody knows.
I do want to point out here that taking a quick look at Jova on visible high res, I do believe I'm starting to see the appearance of an eye feature on visible high res on Jova right now. Definitely appears to be the case, or getting to that point. Looking very impressive on all fronts. I will actually mark it here real quick on my I'll use my Epic Pen annotator tool to annotate what I am currently looking at right now. And let me quickly do this real quick. Right in this particular area right here is where I'm noticing this little bit of an eye feature. That is just off of the latest visible high-res imagery scan. You could still see very, very strong convective banding on the western side. And as we take a quick look at more infrared imagery on Jova, I think it's pretty much safe to say that this storm is looking very impressive, very intense, and you can even see on infrared too that eye feature that may be popping up right there. So this appears to be already working on an eye. We'll have to see if that trend does continue. I think it could likely continue at this point. And if that is the case right now, I think this could potentially be on the brink of major status. I don't know if anybody else would agree with me on this, but that is definitely looking very impressive.
I definitely say it's close. Going back to questions here, was there to be a front that will interact with Lee? I think there was, or there was some sort of ridge that was supposed to interact with Lee whenever it gets up towards Bermuda, but it's a little bit uncertain. Any analogs for Lee? I don't know if there is any, to be honest.
Well, we were actually talking about it. Like one particular track analog that we were talking about was Carol of 1953.
So
At least in our chat, in our group chat, when me and a few of my friends were talking about the storm, Carol 1953 was the main storm that was coming up in our discussions.
yeah, so that's a potential analog that could be seen. Carol for 1953. We'll have to wait and see though where Lee actually goes. It's a little bit uncertain. Um, is Lee going to hit the Leeward Islands? It depends on what you mean by hit. Uh, if you're not going to get the direct center, but of course you're still going to get significant impacts because impacts extend well outside of the forecast cone. You can already see it here. You can see the forecast cone is incredibly tiny because that is where the center will go. But you can see here these outer bands and banding and such extend well outside of the forecast cone. And if you were to line this up with the forecast cone, we'll just keep it in line here. That and the southern bulk of Lee, let's just say that sustains a little bit. That would still bring very heavy rainfall to portions of the Leeward Islands. That is probably the biggest threat that I would say that the Leeward Islands is going to face from Lee is simply just going to be heavy rainfall and maybe some gusts up into the strong tropical storm force. We'll have to wait and see though. That it's still a little bit uncertain because you can see here this forecast cone regarding Lee is still pretty big when it gets to the Leeward Islands. And let's just say hypothetically that Lee decides to track a little bit north of forecast. That could mean that the Leeward Islands doesn't get any impacts at all. That would be the best case scenario for those locations, and that would be a recurve out to sea past the 5 would be more likely. We'll have to wait and see, though. There's still a lot of questions to be answered with Lee. Any questions regarding Lee and potential impacts in the U.S., Florida, Bahamas, and anything really past day 5? Any land masses, I'd say, in this general area regarding Lee, including up here in Canada and places like that. Any areas that I just circled, extending down here, I'll circle it once more. Any impacts in these regions is incredibly uncertain regarding Lee. And what I would say is to just continue to monitor Lee very closely for any potential impacts and updates to the forecast. When Lee gets north of the Leeward Islands, it gets north of Puerto Rico, we'll have a much better idea about where Lee will go. But we have to get there first, and that's going to take some time. If you don't have any comments or questions, we do have just about 1 minute to answer them before we have to go here. I know that we do have another
One
question
question I have.
Sure, go for it.
Why didn't the NHC pull the trigger and give Lee hurricane status now?
Well, I don't really think that there's much evidence to support a hurricane at this point. I know that the organization of Lee, particularly on the western side of the circulation, isn't really that great personally. From what I'm seeing, it's mainly on the eastern side is where a bulk of the convection is at this time. I imagine once the wind shear that Lee is currently dealing with, I know that it's sort of taking its time relaxing. But once that wind shear just relax a little bit more in the next 6 to 12 hours, I imagine we'll see Lee become a hurricane in short order. And it would not surprise me going into this weekend, we see a very powerful hurricane out of Lee.
In addition to this, the official reasoning stated by the NHC is the T3.5 from both TFB and SAB, and continued improvements since the DORAC fixes. In addition to this, I'll add on a little bit of commentary on my own. The shear vector is northeasterly, and if you look at a mid-level water vapor graph, I can't show it here right now. For sake of time, I'll limit it. There is some amount of dry air that's definitely limiting Lee at the moment. So about 24 hours from now, the GFS has the shear vector turning more uniform and in line with the steering vector, which means a decrease in shear. And so the amount of dry air that's affecting Lee should reduce. So if I were to take a guess, I'd say major significant intensification starts around 24 hours from now.
Absolutely. I'm afraid that we're out of time here, folks. So we'll have further updates on these two systems, Lee and Jova, over the next few days. And I imagine we'll be running more live coverage on this storm over the coming days. There's some closing thoughts from me personally.
There is one last question. One last question you can answer, I think. How big is Tropical Storm Lee?
I don't really think it's that big, actually. I'll look up real quick, the National Hurricane Center's maximum winds. It looks like that maximum winds extend outwards 70 nautical miles on the northeast and northwestern side at maximum extent. So not terribly big right now, but of course you can see Lee's influence is a little bit bigger than that, of course. And I imagine once the storm gets up towards major hurricanes, its size and wind speed range will grow quite significantly. So you can stay tuned to our outlets over the next few days.
Will we do an automated stream?
We won't be having an automated stream
Will
just
we do
yet.
an automated stream?
But you can
that's
stay tuned
unfortunate.
to our outlets over the next few days. We'll have further updates on there, on both of these systems, Lee, Jova, and including Yunyang in the Western Pacific. You can follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us if you're probably there right now, actually. Give us a like and subscribe to us if you haven't. We'll have further updates, as I just said, over the next few days. We'll have, I imagine, more live coverage probably tomorrow. We might even run a live tropical weather bulletin tonight. We'll have to wait and see on that. But of course, from all of us here at Force 13, out in the path of Hurricane Lee, or future Hurricane Lee, I should say, stay safe and stay tuned to the National Hurricane Center for further updates on this extremely dangerous and soon to be rapidly intensifying storm.
Peace.
Mic off. Mic on. Mic off.